Hey, good morning and welcome back, everybody, to the John Frederick Show, Common Sense for the Commonwealth. We're Virginia's only statewide radio network. We're broadcasting from the nation's capital and crashing our way through the Commonwealth. On the Straight Talk Express right now, guess who we've got?
It's got to be Old Ironsides, the tough guy,
Ironsides,
the big man, the state senator and Democratic leader, Virginia State Senator Dick Saslaw. It's got to be him. You know how I know, John?
Leader? How do you know that?
I just called him about 3 minutes ago.
That's why you got the inside
Aren't you paying
scoop.
attention to your own show?
All right, Common Sense News Time coming up on 8:12. We have with us Dick Saslaw. He is the Senate Minority Leader of Virginia from District 35, a Democrat. He's been right in the middle of this major landmark negotiation to get this transportation compromise. By the way, the John Frederick Show was a relentless advocate of getting this done, so we're happy that it passed. Senator, great to have you with us.
Well, thank you very much. I got to tell you, I mean, I've been referred to as old, but never like Old Ironsides.
Well, you're the toughest. You're the toughest ship in the fight. Let's put it that way.
Oh, I appreciate that.
It's definitely a compliment, sir.
Well, it wasn't easy to put it together. What you've got is a situation that almost blew up at the end when the governor or the people around him put out a press release, saying that they wanted no part of Medicaid expansion, which would have, probably killed the transportation package. Not probably, it would have. What particularly was interesting was the last sentence where he said it was immoral to take $2 billion from a broke government, and I found it curious that he considers immoral, but the sequester money from the same broke government is not immoral. Maybe, as Ricky Ricardo used to say on I Love Lucy, somebody can explain that to me.
That's a little bit duplicitous.
There's some things that will have to be tweaked in the out years, with that, but by and large, it at least fixes the situation for now.
Senator, when this thing almost fell apart at the end on the Medicaid expansion language, I know Governor McDonald was made aware of it. He then stepped up and worked out a compromise. Were you basically pleased with the final language that the governor amended?
The compromise, he didn't amend it. What happened was the language was put together by the conferees and not by the governor. He was just simply shown that and said he could get along with it. Then the following morning, Saturday morning, Cuccinelli drops a bomb into the middle of the negotiation saying that you can't allocate legislative experience to legislative authority to another body. And we then, put some language in to correct that infirmity, showed that to the governor, and he said he didn't have a problem with that. And pretty much that was the end of that.
Senator, are there any particular executive amendments that you're going to ask Governor McDonald to seriously look at, or are you happy with this compromise as it stands now?
Well, I think it's pretty much going to stand now. I know some people are unhappy about the tax, the $100 on...
The hybrid tax, right.
On the hybrids. Of course, you got the other side of the coin is watching the people who are paying the gas tax subsidize the people who aren't paying the gas tax.
Right.
And, I can see both sides of that. I'm not sure that I don't think if he altered that part of it, it would undo the agreement. I think if he got much farther into it, the amendments would be rejected.
Wouldn't you agree with me that if the governor starts to amend this thing, that every special interest group out there is going to jump on the bandwagon and that it's going to put the whole compromise at risk? I mean, aren't we better off just taking what we have, signing it, and that's it?
Well, I would agree with that. I think if he got into anything, that altered it to a large degree, it would be the amendments would be rejected.
Right.
Then he'd have to make the determination as to whether he wants to veto the whole thing. I don't think he would do that.
Right. So it just probably makes sense to go forward. Now, what about this? There's a couple people now, conservatives and liberals, that are saying that, well, this whole thing might be unconstitutional, looking at the Virginia Constitution, the different levels of taxation. Do you think there's any validity to the argument that this whole compromise might be unconstitutional under Virginia law?
I don't think that it is. I like Paul Goldman, but he's not a constitutional lawyer. He talks about how, they're taxing, one part of the state but not the other. First off, the taxes were all imposed from Virginia, from the General Assembly and not locally. And as far as, having one area tax more than others, and again, the tax that I'm going to mention was put in place in 1980 by the Virginia General Assembly. The Metro tax in Northern Virginia exists at the current time only in Northern Virginia and in the Rappahannock district area. So we do have separate taxation around the state. I don't see it falling on that.
Okay,
that doesn't mean that it can't, because I'm not an attorney.
Right.
But it seems to me that certainly they would have looked at that, the lawyers looked at that prior to that and didn't see any constitutional infirmity.
Right, so it seems like what you're saying, Senator Saslaw, is you're pretty confident that once the lawyers look at it, that this transportation compromise is going to most likely pass Virginia constitutional muster, right?
Yeah, I think it will. I mean, the argument that Goldman and Leahy make in today's Washington Post simply is not so, because as I said, the General Assembly imposed a Metro tax on Northern Virginia more than 32 years ago, and that Metro tax has spread to the Rappahannock district. So there certainly is a precedent for what we did.
Senator Saslaw, was it a challenge to get a majority of your caucus to back this transportation compromise?
It was not once, we changed some of the language with respect to setting the mechanism up for Medicaid expansion. But one of the things that it is, that people should remember, this language is budget language. It is only for a year and a half, because the budget that we're currently in expires on June 30th, 2014.
Right.
And all the language in it expires. If Terry McAuliffe is elected governor, he would apply for the expansion right away, and that would be the end of that.
Why don't we go to the governor's race? Kind of an odd thing right now for Republicans, because the presumptive Republican nominee for governor, our Attorney General, Ken Cuccinelli, came out very much opposed to the compromise, which puts him at odds with Senate and House Republican senior leadership, also puts him at odds with the incumbent Governor McDonnell. Terry McAuliffe, on the other hand, was behind it. How do you think this is going to play out?
It also puts him at odds with the lieutenant governor.
Right, exactly.
Most people in the state, with the exception of that far-out crowd in the Republican Party. I think he's going to have a lot of problems, because telling Northern Virginians that he could have fixed this for free, and that's the proposal that he supported was put out by Senator Newman, that wouldn't have fixed anything, would have raised no money, and that's what he claimed he supported. So Ken thinks you can run the government for nothing. He's always been that way. I mean, the guy believes the Earth is 6,000 years old and flat, and it's kind of hard to for him to get past anything that deals with this. When
you mentioned those in the Republican Party that he sided with, what did you mean by that?
Well, what I meant was the far-right crowd, the ultra-right. I mean, that's his base.
So how does he win without expanding that base?
I don't see how he can expand it, given the bills that he put in while he was in the state Senate and the things that he's done as Attorney General. I mean, this is a guy who put in a bill that said that if people were injured on the job and they were undocumented, they couldn't get workman's comp. This is a guy who put in a bill that said that if people don't speak English on the job, they can be fired. This is a guy who has, and when he wasn't doing that, he was gay bashing. It's just, it's been one thing after another. He challenged the data a scientist at the University of Virginia because he didn't agree with the conclusion, and he went to court to try to get the data. I mean, do you know how hard that's made it for higher education to recruit people while he's been Attorney General?
You mentioned Lieutenant Governor Bill Bolling earlier, Senator. He might run for governor as an independent. We're going to find out in about 2 weeks. In the early surveys, though, what they show is that if the lieutenant governor does run as an independent, he is actually going to get a bigger percentage from your presumptive Democratic nominee, Terry McAuliffe. Well, why do you think that is?
Well, because not very many people know who Terry McAuliffe is. That's why. I think as when Terry goes on TV and starts spending millions on TV, and the people know who he is, I think you'll see a big change. Now, let me tell you this: Bill Bolling is a pretty good guy, and I think what happened to him and what the Republicans did to him was unconscionable. Here's a guy who is a conservative Republican, and the difference between he and Cuccinelli is he does not have an axe to grind, and he thinks, before he does things, and apparently that's not satisfactory to that crowd that would show up at the convention.
Senator, anything that you think might be on the edge as we come through these next 30 days to that one pickup day in early April, or do you think pretty much everything that you've put through stands a chance of signature as we close out here?
I think the bulk of that will, I just don't see him, if he made any major changes to it, it would put the whole thing in danger because I can tell you that we would, I think more than 20 would reject the amendment.
Thanks so much for your appearance this morning. We appreciate the time. And, John, a quick thank you.
I just wanted to, again, thank you, Senator, for coming on. I also want to give a shout-out, Senator, to your longtime administrative aide, Janet Muldoon, in your office there in Richmond. She's fabulous to work with and extremely accessible, returns my call all the time. She's a great lady, and Senator, you need to find a way to give her a raise.
Well, she's about to get one come the 1st of July.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay. All right.